I would like to welcome all of our supporters, benefactors, artists, staff, the board of directors, and members of the community to the McLean County Arts Center Fall 2020 fundraiser. My name is Dan Galvin. I am the president of the board of directors, and I wanted to say a few words to you before we get started with the program. First, I would like to thank our staff, our executive director, Doug Johnson, as well as the board of directors, and especially the events committee for all the hard work that they have put into the planning and execution of this event. This event is always important to us every year. Our events and fundraising efforts are challenging in the day of COVID, and we appreciate all of your support and participation. Funded through fundraising efforts and the generosity of all of you. The value provided by the Arts Center may be obvious to you all. You all understand, since you are here, that the creations of our community artists are a reflection of our society. The value provided by the Arts Center may be obvious to you all. You understand, since you are here, that the creations of our community artists are a reflection of our society. They enrich our lives and bring people together. And they provide a window for others to see inside others' hearts and understand one another at a human level. Understanding is so critically important as a part of what holds our communities together. So I ask you to consider maintaining your patronage of the center. If you are not currently a member, membership is a great way to get involved. If you are already a member, then thank you for your support. You already know about all of the great events and advantages of our membership. I ask you to please enjoy this event and our speakers this year. I would like to dedicate this event to Sean Gravel. Sean is a past board member and past board president who earlier this year was diagnosed with cancer and passed away suddenly. His wife Carrie and two children, Amanda and Adam, saw Sean's devotion to the Arts Center, and they should know that we are all grateful for his service to our center and to the community. Again, thank you everyone for your participation, for your continued support, and I hope you enjoy our program this year.
Welcome, and thanks for joining us. My name is Doug Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of the McLean County Arts Center. We're located in downtown Bloomington in the Cultural District, across the street from the Bloomington Center for the Performing Arts. The McLean County Arts Center is one of the community's great art treasures. We're actually one of the oldest community-based arts organizations in the Midwest, and we can trace our history back to 1888 when we were the Bloomington Sketch Club. We've expanded and changed our programming quite a bit since then. In the early 70s, we became the local arts agency designated by the city of Bloomington, the town of Normal, county of McLean, and the state of Illinois. And that's a role that makes us fairly unique for art centers. We serve a lot of different functions, both locally, statewide, and nationally. But our primary mission is to serve the residents of McLean County. And we do that through a terrific brand of arts programming that includes 16 exhibitions per year in our 3 gallery spaces, and about 50 classes in our 3 classrooms, which includes ceramics, drawing, and painting, with an emphasis for adult learners. Many people in the community know us primarily for the Sugar Creek Arts Festival, and indeed, a festival that's gone on for almost 40 years now has been a terrific event for us, ending up in the top 100 nationally ranked arts festivals. This year, of course, we weren't able to have our traditional arts festival, and we were able to turn it into something virtual. And we're pretty proud of that. A lot of artists recorded excellent sales, and we had more than 5,000 attendees over the course of the 2 days that we made that event live and virtual. So this evening's program will consist of several segments, including our awards, which go to our members of the year, our business partners of the year, and the Douglas C. Johnson Patron of the Year award winners. And this year it's 2 people. Ultimately, there's a whole lot that has changed this year with the pandemic, and I think we've been able to make some nice responses to it. For a lot of what we do, it's dependent upon having a real experience of coming in and experiencing artwork and meeting artists and taking classes with artists within our space. And we've been able to continue some of that. But a lot of virtual responses have happened in addition to those efforts. And if you've been online and following our Facebook page and our website, I'm sure you've had the opportunity to do a lot of those activities along with us. So we thank you for that. I'll begin by introducing our first award, and that is for our Business Partners of the Year. And that goes to our friends at Busey Wealth Management. Not only have they been long-term supporters of the McLean County Arts Center through sponsorships and gifts, but they've proven to be excellent partners as well. So, without further ado, here's a segment we recorded with the folks at Busey Wealth Management.
Hi, my name is Brett Peterson. I am the Director of the McLean and Livingston County Busey Bloomington Wealth Management Department.
And my name is Catherine Wills. I'm the Private Client Manager and Vice President in our Bloomington market for Busey.
We'd like to just take a few minutes and just say how grateful we are for this honor, for this privilege. We've been working with MCAC for a number of years, and to be recognized in this fashion is a great honor. So first and foremost, we appreciate that. Two, I also want to take just a few seconds and just talk about what the MCAC means to, one, Busey, but also the community. It's been around for many, many years. I believe it's since probably well over 100, I believe. And with that in mind, it kind of works in tandem with what Busey has done as well. Busey's been around for about 150 years. So for us to partner and work together makes a lot of sense. The McLean County Arts Center has also been just a fixture and kind of what I would consider a beacon for the arts in Central Illinois. Growing up on a farm very close to here out in Colfax, I've known of the McLean County Arts Center for a number of years. And to have that ability to come from a small town and visit Bloomington and be exposed to local artists, have this kind of venue, have this kind of culture, as it were, has been a very meaningful thing, not only to me, but I feel like many others as well. So again, just a heartfelt thank you for the support, and again, we're looking forward to working with you in the future as well, so thank you.
One of the really fun things we do in Busey Wealth Management is to host events for our clients in a way to connect our clients with other people and relationships at Busey. And one of our very favorite events was hosted right here in a gallery, and still people talk about that as a real favorite and a time to be together in this beautiful building. As a native of Bloomington, Illinois, I can speak to this building and the value of the relationship with our community the McLean County Arts Center has enjoyed, particularly the festival downtown, the art festival, and just coming here and being a part of this beautiful culture in this building has been a real privilege. So we thank you for letting us be a part of that relationship.
When I began as the executive director here at the McLean County Arts Center almost 18 years ago, we had a small permanent collection, a lot of items that were given to us from estates or gifts directly from artists. And it was a nice part of our programming, but not a particular point of emphasis. With the leadership of Paul Harman, who was a board member, we were able to readdress that programming. And now we have a secure off-site location where we can store that expanded collection. And every 3 years, we host an exhibition which features works from that. We've been very fortunate in that we've received some rather significant gifts. And we always appreciate the thoughtfulness of the community as they share their legacy of artwork with us and to Bloomington Normal at large. A lot of that is, of course, due to Paul Harman pushing the idea for that portion of our programming more to the forefront, and we greatly appreciate that. So allow me to introduce our members of the year, Paul and Sandra Harman, who, because of their long-standing roles in the community, almost go without needing an introduction, but we're grateful for their commitment to the arts and to the McLean County Arts Center, which extends well beyond any single organization. Their leadership with our group and the BCPA and the Heartland Theater team have made a tremendous impact for the cultural life of all of our residents. So without further ado, here's Paul and Sandra Harman.
When I graduated from law school in 1968 at the University of Illinois, I was offered a job with the Illinois Agricultural Association, now more commonly known as the Illinois Farm Bureau, in the law department, which also served as the law department for the affiliated companies, including Country Financial. So in '68 we moved to the community, got a little bit adjusted, joined a club or two, and then in 1972 Sandy worked on Carol Reitan's campaign for mayor in Normal, which got me introduced to Carol, and she appointed me to the Planning Commission in 1972 after she was elected. And in '76 I ran for the Normal Town Council, and in '85 there had been a change, so there was one 5-year term in there. I was going to retire from the council, and Dick Godfrey decided not to run for mayor, and the other council members decided they didn't want to run for mayor, and they asked me to run for mayor, and so I ran for mayor and did that. Was mayor of Normal from '85 to '93. When I stepped down from that, I was chairing what was then known as the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development for the Bloomington Normal area, which was sort of an amalgamation of the Chamber, the Economic Development Council, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and I did that for a couple of years. Decided to step down from that, and I told Mayor Carricker, who was then the mayor of Normal, that I thought I'd done about everything I wanted to do locally unless a position came open on the airport board, which, due to the unfortunate death of one of the Normal appointee at the time, came up in about 4 months after I had stepped down. So I was then spent the next 17 years on the what is now the Central Illinois Regional Airport Board, 9 years as chairman. And after I got off that, somewhere in there, I think I was on the board here for a couple of years, and was vice president, I think, in that time span. Was on the board for the Illinois Prairie Community Foundation, and served a couple of years as president, and then was called back and served as a one-year presidency. So I was on that board for about 10 years. And then I was getting old enough, I decided it was time to get off of boards. So I serve on various short-term committees involved in community things at the current time, and we belong to some other organizations, but we're still involved, but not nearly to the extent that I used to be.
I'm not nearly as have the impressive resume that he has, but when we moved over here, I got a job teaching at ISU, and while I was doing that, I also worked in the doctorate in Doctor of Arts and History at ISU. Then, well, I stayed over there for, 30-some years. But the most, I think, important and interesting thing I did while I was over there was to be part of the committee that developed the Women's Studies program. And I taught U.S. Women's History. That was my special area. I taught other classes as well. But at various times I was interim director of the Women's Studies program, and then I was assistant director and academic advisor. Various times I was interim director, assistant director, and academic advisor for the Women's Studies program while I was still teaching in the history department. Oh, and then there was a period of a year,
18 months.
18 months, when I served as the interim or acting director of affirmative action. They've changed the name over there so many different times now. I don't know what it's called today, but I was the assistant to the president for affirmative action. Right. In terms of community involvement, I've been a long-time member of the League of Women Voters. I was president for a year, way back when. I've been on the board a number of times. I've been on the board of the Illinois ISU Friends of the Arts organization, president of that for 3 years. Let's see, what else?
Museum?
Oh, yeah. I've been on the board for the History Museum since about 2000, and I served as secretary of the board for a number of years there. And let's see, in retirement, I've been active in ISU Senior Professionals. I served on the board there on the Education Committee. And let's see, what else? Oh, we've been very active in Heartland Theater over the years, and I was one of the early secretaries of that board back when it was just getting started. And I think that does it.
That's an awful lot.
Well, there's more, but I can't think.
Wow, that's great.
In terms of our involvement with the arts, it really started early when we just started on different trips buying art. We like originals, or, they can be prints and stuff, but original kinds of works. And so we've always had that kind of an interest, and locally before Heartland Theater even got started, Carol Wright-Han and Rita Kahn invited me over to Rita Kahn's kitchen to discuss what they were thinking about in terms of Heartland Theater. This was when I was mayor, and wanted to know what kind of town support there might be, and I said, well, I'd personally support it. There wasn't at that point going to be a lot of town support with the way it was. It was going to be a reader's theater for new plays, so it'd be the first time a playwright could have their play read and kind of react to how it sounded. Obviously, Heartland Theater has expanded well beyond that. I've been on a committee for Heartland a couple of times for sort of a long-range looks at things. Sandra, and she should talk about this, she's on the play reading committee that chooses the seasons. And so we've been longtime supporters of Heartland Theater. We've been longtime supporters of the Art Center here in terms of sponsoring some shows and contributing and that sort of thing over the years, and really find this to be a fine organization for the community. It really gives us something it's not a museum. It really is a sort of a rotating number of shows throughout the year. So it's not a static kind of an organization. And I think that brings an added dimension for the community. Now, personally, I've always thought Bloomington Normal needs an art museum. Other communities smaller than us have nice ones, and so this is my appeal to all of you who might be listening to donate your art to an art museum, which could be part of this organization. No reason they can't have two buildings. We've been very interested in theater over the years and music, that sort of thing. So just we've gone to New York many times on the ISU theater trip, visiting various museums and stuff and doing various things in New York. We belong to the Chicago Art Institute, and I don't know how many people know that it is one of the great world museums. The first time we were in Paris, they had books of the Chicago Art Institute for sale. So that was in the 70s. So we've just always just had a general interest in supporting the art. And we are eclectic in our likes. We do not, it doesn't have to be representational, although we end up buying landscapes, which are pretty representational, but it doesn't. But we like Depression art for some reason. We really like Depression art, and a lot of the graphics and stuff from the 20s and 30s really appeal to us. And then I'll think. Okay.
Well, as Paul said, art has been very important for us. And in fact, when we were first asked to shelter in place, the two things I wanted the most, art and nature. And so we've over the years purchased catalogs of exhibits that we've been to. And so one of the things I did was pull those catalogs out and just look at the plates, and that made me feel better. Missed coming here for the shows, the openings and all that. Oh, when I was a kid, my folks were very, very active in the local community theater, which was Waterloo, Iowa. And so I've always had an interest in theater, and that's what drew me to Heartland. As Paul said, I'm on the play reading committee now, which we read many, 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 many plays, trying to pick out a season. And it's very enjoyable. It gets tedious sometimes, but it's really fun. I mean, I'm the only amateur there. The others really have theater backgrounds. So I learned so much just from listening to the discussion on plays. You know, things that I read them for, is this interesting to me? And will it interest our audience? And can we do it? But they see other things that are important, and that helps me in future times when I read the plays. So I've enjoyed that a lot. Let's see, what else?
I think Sandra maybe has not mentioned that the YWCA Women of Distinction Award, Sandra got it for the arts, for the things that she had done in the arts community, and for she's a published playwright, by the way.
In an educational journal. I like to say that the award, they changed the names of those awards over the years too, but it was for creative arts and entertainment. So I like to tell people I was neither creative nor entertaining, but I was on a number of boards and committees of our arts organizations, which is why I got it.
Well, and I think part of the reason you got it after the exhibit you curated for the History Museum on the Depression.
Our next award goes to our Patrons of the Year, and we're fortunate that we have two excellent choices to celebrate. Gay Dolan and Alexis Kalish were longtime board members, both coming in on different times. Alexis has served a couple different stints on the board, But together, they are an incredible powerhouse. Indeed, the fact that we've had these fundraising events at all is a great testament to their dedication and sincere investment in the arts and our community.
My name is Gay Dolan, and I am truly honored to be selected as a recipient of the Douglas C. Johnson Patron Award and to be a co-recipient with Alexis Kalish.
So I'm Alexis Kalish. I have served on the Art Center board for 4 different sessions, and I'm also very proud to be part of this McLean County Art Center community. And I'm delighted to be here as a recipient of the Douglas C. Johnson Distinguished Patron Award and to share that with Gay. Back in the early 1990s, a friend of mine became the executive director of the McLean County Art Center, and she asked if I would like to volunteer to help out with an event. That was Art in the Park. It was planned by Artie Nowers and Georgette Shoup. It was a big white tent in Franklin Park with lots of white lights, and I remember Artie making a whole bunch of pumpkin cheesecakes to serve for dessert. After that, they asked me if I would like to be on the board of directors. I accepted that, and one of my fondest memories is when Kim Piotrowski was the executive director. Kim is an abstract artist who lives in the Chicago area. She and I used to host bus trips to various art exhibits. We had a great time, and she's a dear friend today.
I became involved in the Art Center about 7 years ago, I believe it was. I got a phone call from a total stranger, and she told me her name was Alexis Kalish, and I said, okay, and you want what? And she asked if she could meet with me to discuss being more involved with the Art Center. I knew very little about the Art Center at that point in time, very little. I had gone to Sugar Creek, and I'd been to Spring Bloom because it was just down the street from me where I lived at the time. And she didn't ask me for my social security number, so I thought, well, I'm okay. I can meet with this woman and have coffee. And as I recall it, I mean, she was very organized and had a lot of materials to present to me, ready to go. And I thought, oh, wow, this is impressive. But I think I told her I'd think about it. And so I did, and as I recall, is this how you're remembering it, that I said I would think about it? And then I got back to you? Okay.
Quite possibly.
At any rate, I guess I didn't think long. And so I've been involved with the Art Center for that period of time. I did toddle along behind her for quite a while because I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do, and so I did whatever Alexis did. And that went on for a while until I think maybe she went on vacation or something and she wasn't there, and I had to figure it out by myself. And by that time I'd probably had about a year's experience. So.
And what I remember about that meeting at Coffee Hound was that I felt like I was being interviewed. I thought I was checking out a potential board member to see what they might have to contribute, where they might fit in, if it was a match. So I'm glad, I am very glad that it worked out as well as it did.
As am I. I think one of the most memorable things for me, and I think you can speak to this as well, Alexis, is when, after I'd been on the board for about a year, and they needed a new chairperson. I found myself sitting in that seat. I'm still not sure how I got there, but and Doug came in and said, we need a fundraiser. This is how I recall it. We need a fundraiser, and we need to come up with something to do this fall. And that was the beginnings of the Fall Fundraiser. At that point, we kind of had a focus group of a mixture of people, and ideas were spun around the room, and oh boy, I think maybe a former board member, Sue Alexander, came up with the idea of a luncheon, and that everybody else was doing dinners, and why didn't we do a luncheon? And so we started with a luncheon and very little else, and very little time to put it together. I mean, that was probably in April when we made that decision, and we had a fundraiser in one of the first weeks of September, as I recall it. So that was a miracle.
So my second stint on the board was, again, about 7 years ago. I was just a step ahead of Gay joining the board at that time. And I think one of the greatest accomplishments of my time these last 6-7 years was development of creating the future. And I give Gay a lot of credit for developing that. She was chair of the events committee. She gathered this group of people. Probably none of us had a whole lot of experience in creating events or planning them, but we worked hard, we learned, and we've grown the event. Another thing that I really admire about what Gay has done with this is that the event reflects the Arts Center activity. We highlight the education programs, the exhibitions, the financial is obviously a part of it, promote membership, thank our supporters. And this year in particular, we are doing things to maintain and preserve our historic building. And that brings me to something, one of my favorite experiences of all time was being able to go up into that bell tower with Doug and Lisa and Justin and the summer intern. And I'm glad I did it before I got any older.
Brave girl.
Something that is kind of interesting in planning for the luncheons and the dinners. Gay and I are both morning people. So usually about 6:30 in the morning, one of us will send the other one an email and we'll start discussing what's going on and decisions that we need to make. And that's worked very well for us.
Yeah.
We joke that we're kind of joined at the hip, but I think it has been an enjoyable experience. Gay has a lovely home that she often uses to have committee meetings. We look out over her pond in the backyard and all the birds and squirrels and sit at her, as we call it, the kitchen table.
Yeah.
And it's been an enjoyable experience.
One of the things that makes it work, I think, is that we each contribute a different skill set. And if there's something that involves a computer, I go, Alexis, would you like to do that? Or she will volunteer because she knows that in order to meet a time demand that it wouldn't be me to do the job.
Well, I love charts.
Right, and can produce them very quickly. So, I mean, I do think that's one of the things that's made it work, is that if you team with somebody that you don't always have to be think exactly alike or be have the same interests and abilities, that it can work in a collaborative way without that one being a clone of the other. Anyway, it's been a wonderful, really wonderful kind of collaboration. I've loved it.
It has, and we are really enjoying working with Kimberly as well. She brings a lot of talent and good promotional ideas to the job, and I think that will just make everything all that much better.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting times for all of us. And enabling programming to continue during this pandemic has been a major focus for all of us. Like today, while we aren't able to meet together, we're still able to have the opportunity to share with you the projects that are undergoing here and the programming that continues. In the last year, we've had several nice things that have happened. Although Sugar Creek was canceled in its real state, the virtual event continued. We had almost 5,000 attendees, and many artists reported excellent sales. We've been able to begin the work of moving our ceramics program into a new classroom, a space that formerly held our permanent collection. That permanent collection has been moved into an off-site, humidity-controlled, temperature-controlled venue, and that gives us the leeway to expand that very successful program. Additionally, in the last year, we've been the recipient of the personal library of Dr. Harold Greger. Dr. Greger, of course, was the retired distinguished professor of fine arts at ISU, and his expansive library, a gift from his widow Marlene, has allowed us to create a large sharing library in our classroom space. Our funding focus for this year's fundraiser is our building issues. You can't have a building that's this age without having some issues, and as I've said many times, we love this building and we hate this building. There's so much wonderful architecture and so much love that it requires that it gives a lot of focus for our day-to-day operations. At last year's luncheon, I talked about the possibility of a capital bill moving through Springfield, which could help us address many of these issues. I'm happy to announce that with the assistance of Senator Bill Brady and signed by the governor, that bill has now passed, and the McLean County Arts Center will be the recipient of $100,000 for us to address roofing issues, electrical issues, parking lot, tuck pointing, and the list goes on and on. Ultimately, there'll be a matching requirement for that $100,000, and we're hopeful that with your help, we'll be able to meet that obligation.
I'm Crystal Lyon, and I'm the Education Coordinator here at the McLean County Arts Center. And one of the things that we put into motion during the quarantine was the Stay-at-Home Art Challenge, which was wonderful for our community. It gave us a way to connect with them, to offer activities and creativity to families who were all of a sudden were all at home. We also took the time during quarantine to do a lot of work in our education spaces. We turned 2 classrooms in a storage space into 3 classrooms. And so now we have lots of room for social distancing and for ceramics classes, which are full to the brim, and all the creativity that happens downstairs. We also have a new library downstairs, which is a huge gift from Harold Greger. He donated all of his books to the Art Center, and we have this beautiful library downstairs that's going to be a resource for generations to the McLean County area.
Hi, my name is Maggie, and I'm the curator at the McLean County Arts Center. When the pandemic hit, we had to reschedule a lot of our exhibitions for the year and push them back to next year and even into 2022. Even if we hadn't had to shut our doors, there were some artists that had their work being held by other institutions, so they simply didn't have their work to show. But while we were shut down, we were able to direct people to our online repository of exhibition videos, so people were able to take in our past exhibitions maybe for the first time. And when we were able to open up again, we had an empty gallery on our hands, so our exhibitions committee had the opportunity to get creative, and we put on a show of our permanent collection with pieces that they selected, as well as our board members.
We would like to thank our community of McLean County, as well as our members, numerous volunteers, board of directors, interns, staff, and our executive director, Doug Johnson, for his leadership and dedication to a cause that he truly believes in.
This year, we're asking community members and businesses for your financial support of our Fund a Need sponsorship opportunities. Your contributions will directly help us to be able to renovate and make necessary repairs to the historic 111-year-old former church the Art Center is housed in. Our building was designed by famed local architect Arthur Pillsbury and allows us to offer over 50 different arts education opportunities, a wide range of exhibitions and events each year. By joining us as community partners in the arts, your funded need financial contribution will make a significant contribution to our community.
Our keynote presentation comes from 3 different speakers. Terry Bush was executive director of the McLean County Arts Center when we acquired this facility and moved into it. And he offers a nice perspective on that shift. The building was designed by Arthur Lowe Pillsbury, a local architect of significance for many of his constructions, and we're fortunate that this unique building carries that heritage. And you'll see that historian Bill Kemp offers us a perspective on this great architect and his life. And finally, Russel Francois, himself a past board member of the McLean County Arts Center, was responsible for the addition where the staff offices and the Armstrong Gallery now stand. The room I'm in now was actually an alleyway between the church and the parsonage some years ago. And the great success we have with navigating these spaces is due in large part to the wonderful work of Russel Francois. So please enjoy.
I'm Terry Bush, and I was the first director of the McLean County Arts Center, hired in September of '77, I believe it was, and stayed until January of '81, which put me right in the middle of the Arts Center's move from leased space at 210 East Washington Street to the current building here on East Street. When I was hired, the Art Association had just kind of made its move from the Russell Gallery of the Withers Library. The ceiling there had collapsed, and the Art Association had to make a decision about whether to simply move, remain a private organization, disband, whatever. They decided to make the leap and become a public arts agency and to establish the Arts Center. So they leased the second floor of the old Bloomington Club building, which stood at 210 East Washington Street. Opened up sales and rental gallery, a used bookstore, exhibition gallery, and continued a visual arts education program that had actually started during the bicentennial. The education program was really being run independently, but eventually became an integral part of the Arts Center. In 1979, the lease on that space was up, and we were notified that we had to vacate. The building was slated for demolition. And so again, the Art Association had to make a decision about its future direction. And Nancy Merwin was the president of the association at the time and the chief magician behind all that followed, really, in terms of this building. The association committed to finding permanent space. They were done leasing space. They wanted to have their own home. And Nancy knew of this church coming available, and you're supposed to do a full-blown feasibility study before you buy a building, and we just didn't have time for that. My estimate was we could stay in operation for about 6 weeks without generating income from classes and sales and rentals and so forth. And after that, it was going to get really dicey. So we didn't have a whole lot of time to raise money for a capital campaign. Our feasibility study consisted of Nanki and I meeting here and going through the building. And we sat down in the church. It was still in use as a Pentecostal congregation. And we sat down in the church and we looked at each other after looking the building over a couple of times. And she said, "What do you think?" And I said, "I think it'll work." And she said, "So do I." That was our feasibility study. She went to work raising money with great success, led a fundraising effort that was quite remarkable. The Merwin family at that time owned the Daily Pantograph. They are direct descendants of Jesse Fell. They are cousins of the Stevenson family, deep roots in McLean County, and they did an excellent job of involving all of the right people, really, in getting the art center on its feet in its own home.
Well, I think the McLean County Arts Center is fortunate to be located not only in downtown Bloomington, the cultural hub of the Twin Cities, but also in this beautiful building connected to Arthur L. Pillsbury, one of the more prominent architects in Bloomington Normal's history, dedicated in April or the spring of 1909. It's really one of the few examples of mission revival, if you will, architectural style in the building. And that was a style popular in the late 19th and into the early 20th century and somewhat predates the Spanish colonial revival, Spanish architectural revival that really takes off in the Twin Cities in the 1920s. So here is a beautiful early example of mission revival, and not only that, but done by Arthur L. Pillsbury, probably the most well-known architect associated with Bloomington Normal. Research done at the McLean County Museum of History, we have identified around 435 residences connected to Arthur L. Pillsbury. He was somewhat kind of a society architect. He had connections to Bloomington Country Club. As the city of Bloomington was growing to the east side, a lot of homes, for example, on East Washington Street are Arthur Pillsbury's. He worked well in kind of the old Americanisms, kind of the vernacular, somewhat style a lot of well-to-do people were interested in, such as Georgian or Federal style. But he also worked well in more modern styles of the early 20th century, such as arts and crafts. And he was known to really combine different styles. So he had really kind of an eclectic overall style, personal style. So he worked well in Gothic architecture, in even Rococo or Baroque. And we see those examples throughout Bloomington Normal. So not only 435 some residences, we've identified probably more than 70 commercial buildings tied to Arthur Pillsbury. The downtown Bloomington fire, the Great Bloomington Fire of June 19th, 1900, decimates 4.5 to 5 city blocks of the central core of downtown Bloomington, and Pillsbury is one of several architects that plays a major role, a fundamental role in reshaping the built environment of downtown Bloomington. And there are more than a dozen buildings associated with him post-fire. And we know some of those, such as the McGregor building, which is now the Gregor Art Gallery building at 311 North Main, kind of in a, I guess, a neoclassical style, a 3-story commercial building, which he was known for. Not only, so we have residences, commercial buildings, 17 banks associated with Arthur Pillsbury, but for our interest here is the 30-plus churches he was associated with, and this is certainly one of the finer ones, and many Pillsbury churches no longer survive. This building dates to 1909, as I've mentioned. After that, we have First Christian or the Disciples of Christ Church in Normal is opened in 1912. That's in Arthur, Pillsbury. And then a year later, First Presbyterian Church in Normal is built. Both of those structures are gone. There is a surviving Pillsbury Church on the old northwest end of Normal. That would be the United Brethren Church, now owned by Eastview. But this is one surviving example of a Pillsbury church, and done in a mission revival style. So we have kind of the hallmarks of mission revival here in this lovely, what is now the McLean County Arts Center building. So we have decorative parapets. We have rounded or arched doorways and windows. We have that kind of beautiful square tower, Mission Revival, kind of a hallmark with kind of an arcaded upper story. We have the barrel-tiled, slightly low-slung roof. So this is a very distinctive building, and I think the McLean County Arts Center has been a central part of the downtown scene, going all the way back to its long association with Withers Library. In fact, I think of the McLean County Arts Center, its true birth really being in the early 1920s with the Bloomington Art Association. And the Art Association had a gallery in the old Withers Public Library in downtown Bloomington beginning in the early 1920s until Withers Library is raised in the mid-1970s. And then, of course, the Art Center moves into the old Congregational Church here right next to the Bloomington Center for Performing Arts. So as downtown Bloomington begins to remake itself and become a vibrant cultural hub for the Twin Cities, we look at things like the Grossinger Arena. We look at the McLean County Museum of History. We look at the Bloomington Center for Performing Arts, and we can't forget the McLean County Arts Center. So these are the cultural institutions that are really going to lead, I think, the rebirth of downtown Bloomington, that will really play a crucial role in that.
Graduate of LSU School of Environmental Design, and I remember one of the professors saying that do yourself a favor. He said your first 5 years, 10 years, if you want to live in Louisiana, go practice that first decade elsewhere, because you'll be able to live in Louisiana more comfortably if you do. I said all of that to say this: I have a very long history with this building, and it's more from the social. I came up here working with the church at the time that was occupying this building when it was a church. They had bought the old Christian Science Church, so they said, let's re-up this building into an office building. And they did re-up it, and at that time it combined this residential piece with the main building. Would I do that today? Absolutely not. Am I embarrassed about a lot of it? Yes, I am. Thankfully, I've had another 30 years. I haven't returned to Louisiana, but it might have been really good advice from that professor a long time ago to do your mistakes elsewhere. Having said all of that, it has worked. I'm not sure about the visual continuity from a design. Nevertheless, what I do remember is that the transition, how important that piece was. The church was vacating. They wanted to sell the building, and it was Nanky Merwin at the time that approached, and I'm not sure, I think of course it was Dave, but my understanding, and I stand to be corrected, my understanding was that Dave had lunch with several people that could make this happen and simply said, we would like to see this happen, and it happened. So it was private individuals coming together to further the arts. And I think it was one of the high points whenever the arts purchased the building. All of the glass were stained glass windows that were here were not appropriate for an art gallery. Those were all returned back, I think sold maybe, but for a very low amount, to the original company that still is in existence today in St. Louis that had put the glass in 100 years ago. So that piece about the building, I think, whenever I, as an architect, talk about Pillsbury as an architect, he did fantastic work. Died whenever the Ensenberger building was being redeveloped. in an accident, car accident, on his way back from a U of I football game. But the building, I think, mission style, has had a presence for a great long time. When this building was built, I think New Mexico was not a state yet. And so, if we just allow the buildings to tell their story, there are great stories to be told. And we often say that, I've been told, as we've worked downtown, that one gentleman said, well, you know what, one architect per building is sufficient. He said, even if it's 100 years later, I'm not certain that they need another architect to do redesign of buildings. I concur in many ways, because I think that as we see new construction go up, so often we are not taking the care today to be quite as design oriented as they were 100 years ago. And so even though I probably rework something that I wouldn't do today, know that Pillsbury's work still shines bright, because you can tell where Pillsbury stopped and I started.
Thank you for joining with us today. We appreciate your support and your encouragement during these challenging times. If you haven't had the opportunity yet, please take a minute and look at the silent auction. Those items will be closing in a few minutes, and this will be your last opportunity to make a bid. And now, if you'll join with me, we'll cut from this pre-recorded segment to the raffle drawing for the Funks Grove painting. Thank you, and thanks for your support.